Welcome visitor, my name is Dekman and I'm pleased to offer you the 11th part of the WoW Player's Diary. My transfer to Gordunni realm hit a snag due to technical reasons. Well, for some reason the card payment wouldn't go through, and so I had to visit the bank and get online payment activated. Eventually though, everything was sorted. I logged in, deleted the tune I'd made to reserve my name, and remain my main. Dekven, the dwarf hunter from Moonglade, effectively converted to Orthodoxy. And so, Dekven the hunter appeared on a Gordunni Russian server and was kindly welcomed into the Night Watch Guild. I had two main reasons for switching to the top Russian PvE server. Firstly, I wanted to actually complete the content, not just suffer through it. In our last Ulduar 10 raid in Moonglade, we'd only managed to down Hodder and Thorim. I seriously doubted we would have even beaten Freya, let alone Mimiron. I was determined to clear Ulduar and finally see Yogg-Saron, seeing meaning defeat him. Secondly, on a server with such high concentration of hardcore guilds, I figured that it would be plenty of materials for my blog. I planned to focus more on news from Russian WoW community, which I felt was generally underreported. Later on, I even managed to interview two top Russian guilds, Quantum and Exorsus. Back on Moonglade, I left behind my druid Zinzarina, a night elf blonde I'd intended to be my new European main. My bank out Terrafina inherited a lot of Dekven's junk and couple of thousand gold to manage Zinza's finances. As it turned out, I never really found the time to play my European alts after the transfer. About 3 weeks into my Gordunni experience, the server notorious issues, queues and lag became apparent. I didn't encounter the wide lag I'd seen on my transfer day. Generally, if you steered clear of Dalaran, things were mostly fine. Latency hovered around 150 to 180 milliseconds, occasionally spiking over 300 milliseconds, but nothing game-breaking. Queues weren't a huge problem initially either. Even with 200-300 people waiting, I could just alt up and catch up on news. If you log in after 11 p.m. GMT +3 or during the daytime, there were usually no queues at all. This became a much bigger headache later when Path 3.3 Ice Crown Citadel dropped and queues time exploded, often stretching to an hour or more. At first I really liked the guild. In guild chat people discussed not only PvE everyday life but also general topics. These senses of humor, overall arrogancy, maturity and common sense and manners were all good, so the transition from one friendly group to another went smoothly. Now, for what I didn't like, the public chat channels, especially trade. It was a complete nightmare. Messages scrolled by its speed for fast-forward video. The main topics were raid recruitment, guild recruitment, and finding arena partners. The looking for a group channel was a similar mess. I put up it for about 10 days and simply turned off trade chat. On Moonglade, the atmosphere was entirely different. Sure, gold sellers spammed there too, but in trade in general, people communicated more slowly and thoughtfully. There were trade ads and recruitment messages, but also general questions to the community, and sometimes interesting discussions would pop up. It was often genuinely interesting to read. On Gordunni, I only witnessed something like once, then players were discussing football results, which made me laugh. Overall, the player base on a European server felt more well-rounded and seemed to have the desire and time for leisurely, intelligent conversation, and Gordunni felt like a bustling business capital. Ads everywhere, everyone hyper-focused on their career, making deals, and constantly in a rush. Charity nicknames were a whole other story. I saw some truly bizarre ones. However, Gordunni wasn't unique in this. It was a widespread phenomenon of WoW, Russian WoW servers, from the very beginning. Someone with a great sense of humor even did a study on WoW characters' name back in early days. Well, it still can be found in a web archive. As that report highlighted, names with sexual, abusive or idiotic themes were a serious problem. By spring 210, the situation wasn't as deplorable as it had been at the start of WoW. GMs were actively cutting out the worst of this nonsense, but it was an ongoing battle. As of March 28, 210, a quick armor research still revealed 4 characters named as 7 idiots, 6 bitches, 9 morons, 3 masturbators, and 7 orgasm. Sorry, YouTube. I hope I would not be banned for that. Despite this, I was generally happy with my progress. In the first few weeks lockouts, I got a lot of gear. The pace of farming badges were leagues ahead of my old server. We cleared the Trial of Crusader 25-player versions quickly and usually within an hour. We also ran Ulduar, but since these were often random groups, we usually only got as far as General Vezax. Looking ahead, I only managed to finally see and defeat Yogg-Saron much later in the summer, when our raid leader decided to organize achievement runs. Path 3.3 Icecrown Citadel and the Dungeon Finder. The release of Path 3.3 was a fast approach in bringing with a highly anticipated Icecrown Citadel raid. The Lich King, formerly Prince Arthas, is undeniably one of the most central figures of Warcraft lore. The plots of Warcraft 3 Reign of Chaos and its expansion, the Frozen Throne, revolve around him. For many players, Wrath of the Lich King felt like a logical continuation of the main storyline from Warcraft real-time strategy series. As some players often said, for them, WoW effectively ended with the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. New content is always welcome, especially the final raid of an expansion. However, some changes have a more profound and lasting impact on the game than just new bosses and loot. The introduction of the cross-server 5-player Dungeon Finder and its automatic group assembly system was one of the most significant innovations of this era. Before Path 3.3, putting together a group for low and mid-level dungeons was a major hassle, especially on medium to low population server. It could easily take an hour or two to find enough people, and another 20 minutes for everyone to travel to the instance entrance. Inevitably, someone would drop out and the rest of the group would sit around smoking bamboo, doing nothing, while trying to find a replacement. It was a dreary business. After Path 3.3, the situation changed radically. No more spamming trade chat or idling in the LFG channel. You simply selected an instance from a list and pressed a button. The system assembled the group automatically and, even better, teleported everyone directly to the dungeon. It even ported you back to your original location afterwards. Like any major innovation, player reactions were mixed. Many were thrilled to no longer spend ages searching for groups. On the other hand, the system sometimes packed groups with a gerund mix of skilled players and some who were downright weak, leading to many whines, complaining and rants on the forums. The elite players from high population, progress-focused servers like Gordunni or Soulfly openly mocked the casuals from servers with more modest progress, and casuals often responded in a kind. What's certain is that Path 3.3 became a watershed moment after which distinct server communities began to blur. Previously, players would communicate within instances, add each other to friends list, and even ban, ignore, blacklist problematic individuals. Now, much of that social dynamics became less important. What difference did it make how someone treated you if you were likely to run an instance with them only once? Getting on someone's blacklist was no longer a significant deterrent. As for new instanced content, Path 3.3 brought not only the long-awaited Icecrown Citadel ICC, but also the Frozen Halls, 3 new 5-player dungeons, Forge of Souls, Pit of Sauron, and Halls of Reflection. These were significantly more challenging than old 5-men from patches 3.0, 3.2. In these new dungeons, players quickly remembered what it felt like to wipe and trash mobs. The boss fights were original and engaging, especially the encounter with the Lich King and House of Reflection. This was the first boss fight that primarily involved running away from him rather than trying to kill him. The loot in the frozen halls was comparable in quality to drops from 10-player Trial of Crusader. Icecrown Citadel itself became a logical embodiment of Blizzard's trading for masses concept. As with Trial of the Crusader, Blizzard implemented two difficulty levels, normal and heroic, for both 10 and 25 player versions. Heroic difficulty was only unlocked after defeating the Lich King on normal. In principle, the normal difficulty was manageable for many casual guilds and players without extensive raiding experience, especially after Blizzard progressively introduced a zone-wide buff that reduced both damage and health. Sindragoza and Lich King himself were considered the truly serious challenges, particularly on their heroic versions. The wings of ICC were opened sequentially. Until January, only the first wing, containing 4 bosses, was available. The release pace when quickened and hardcore players reached the Lich King by early February. The world's first Lich King kill was mired in controversy, and the 10-player version, Blood Legion, secured a clean kill and well-deserved achievement. In the 25-player race, Kungen and his guild Ansidia were initially credited with the world first, but they were banned a day later for using an exploit involving Saronid bombs. They received a 3-day ban, had their loot removed, and their achievement annihilated. Kungen and Ansidia leading raiders erupted in angry letters to Blizzard, arguing the buggy raid encounters were normal for pancakes, while a common, somewhat dismissive phrase meaning such thing happened. But this didn't change the outcome. The Russian guild Exorsus also distinguished themselves in this progression race, achieving world first on a Professor Putrid Seed, Blood Queen Lanatel and Siniragoza in ICC 10 Heroic, and were the first to complete the Glory of Icecrown Raider 10 players achievement. Sometime after heroic modes were unlocked and Lich King was defeated in heroic, Blizzard introduced a stacking zone-wide buff in ICC, increasing player damage dealt and health. Each month the buff increased by 5%, eventually reaching 30% by summer. In other words, ICC was eventually nerfed to the ground. The first heroic Lich King kill was achieved by the Finnish guild Paragon, though they did it with the initial 5% buff active. Later, after fully farming him with a buff, they famously killed him again without any buff assistance. So this is all for today. If you liked the video, so thumbs up. If you are not subscribed of the channel, please do this, because the continuation of the WoW Player's Diary, well, will be continued. So thank you very much for your attention, and good luck.